Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has told the country he is not the Minister of Bailouts after SOEs have been lining up to plead their case for cash injections after they were hollowed out during the state capture years and turned into ATMs for Jacob Zuma, his family and the Guptas. Well, can and should we have state-owned enterprises? And if so, how can they be run efficiently? Joining me to tackle this question is Mark Barnes, a former head of the Post Office. Mr. Barnes, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you sacrificing your Sunday to come in and speak to me. Now, you walked away from the Post Office, but you are a believer in state-owned companies. Why is that?
Thank you. I think the state is a critical element of the economy, and a failed state is a critical element of a failed economy. Okay, and so that we must fix the SOEs is beyond question. Okay, and so the notion that we should privatize everything, I mean, is, I think, more divisory than it doesn't address the question of inequality. In as much as those who can afford a private service, they've already got it. Okay, and that'll always be the case. Okay, and so what we need to do is marry this extraordinarily difficult threesome of policy, social imperative, and commercial necessity. Okay, and that requires very different role players. Policy should be solved in the manifesto of those who get voted into government. If they present a policy and we vote on it, then that policy is what we've supported as a democratic society. That's done. There are social mandates. For example, you can't willy-nilly say, let's sell every service to the highest bidder. Look what happened in social grants, okay, where we took what was a service and turned it into a profit-making business. It's never been a profit-making business. It's meant to be a service. Okay. If we start privatizing or selling off all of the, first of all, I can't imagine what you'd get if you tried to sell off an SOE today. Not a lot. Okay. And then you'd be in the hands of people whose sole mandate is optimizing the return on capital employed. Well, how are we going to serve our people if that's the only mandate? Okay, so.
But how do we marry serving our people and remaining profitable? If one takes, for example, the case of the SABC at the moment, it's bankrupt. It just went into a deal with MultiChoice for 72 million rand to get viewers so that the PSL games can be played. But it has not gotten a bailout. The board believes that it has met several objections. Some NGOs believe that government is deliberately trying to collapse the board so that they can make the SABC more pliable. So how do you marry, the different stakeholders' outcomes of what they want with an organization that is supposed to also be financially sound?
Well, like anything in life, you've got to recognize your different roles, okay? And the people who are tasked with compliance of social mandates are not the same people who are tasked with return on shareholders' funds, and the two should be left to deal once we've decided what the game is, okay? So you have to be commercially viable to continue, okay? And so the infrastructure that is represented by the multiple SOEs in our country are actually the foundations of the normal economy as well. Okay, so if there's no electricity, there's no economy. There is a deep and necessary relationship between the survival of the entire population and the economic aspirations of the entire population and the ability of the infrastructure for which government is responsible and for which other people won't necessarily stump up the capital. That infrastructure is necessary for us to have an economy. We talk about, the need for township economies. Who's going to go there? Well, not the people in Sandton.
Yes.
Okay. So that's why we need a state bank. That's why we need people that are operating at a level where you are creating tax base which will compete with the established economy and which will be enabled initially. Because if we don't solve inequality, we won't solve poverty and we won't find peace. Okay, so these are necessary investments in entities where their infrastructure is without question. You can't not have a railway system. You can't not have... Now, if you want to talk about, do we need an airline? Well, we certainly need to fly about. Okay, do we need to own the airline? I don't know. Is there a case to be made for looking at the alternative capital models? Sure. Should you sell it today? Are you crazy? Who's going to pay for it? Okay, so should we fix it and then talk about partnerships? Of course. Is there a place for partnerships? There must be. I mean, why would we replicate the technology in all the telcos instead of partnering with them and using that technology? Why would we not use data mining inside the state as well as those who use it outside, and so on?
You've been a great advocate for why state-owned companies are necessary. What was the ingredient, the most important ingredient, when you were heading up the post office that made you bring all these various elements together so that you can operate to provide a service, that you can be financially viable, and that you can also make a contribution to the economy?
Common cause and truth, and changing fundamentally the expectations of the people who work there. Okay? Instead of a culture where failure is a refuge, where we fail together and that is our strength, we allowed the exception. We allowed the possibility of success until we began welcoming it and embracing it, and we allowed mistakes, we allowed judgment calls, and we shared knowledge so that when we talked about the economics of the firm, the unions understood the economics of the firm because we'd walked through the income statement together. When we talked about holding ourselves in because we need to eat later, we all understood why we were doing it together. And so you have to, first of all, establish a seriously honest truth about the economic and social necessities, and then you have to all know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, the sea is too difficult to go on your own. But having established that, please don't get in my way while I'm running with the ball and you're not a runner. And
when you say please don't get in my way, are you referring to boards and to government shareholders once that common cause has been established? Is that the reason why you walked away from it?
Well, that would be the fashionable reason to say, but it's not just it's everybody. If you are going to work in a state-owned entity, you must accept policy. You must accept social requirements. You must accept that there's in the post office's case, a public service mandate. You must accept it, cost it properly, agree with government how it's going to be dealt with, rather than try and fight it. Okay, and so having established our roles, then if you've got the right people in the roles, for goodness sake, give them the space to do what they do. You can't have a prop forward in rugby telling a wing how to run, because the guy goes, excuse me, you don't know how to run, man, and I don't know how to scrum and get the ball. Okay, so there, everyone says there's no I in team. There are I's in teams. And you need eyes in teams, because when it's your turn to dance, you better be dancing according to the thing that you practiced about. Okay.
Now, Mr. Bonds, there's a lot of vacancies at a lot of state-owned companies at the moment. You ran your operation very well. You are a straight-talking guy. Are you being approached by various state-owned companies to possibly come and join them and take your formula that you use at the post office? And if you do accept, what will your condition be to go and work there?
Well, I mean, there are lots of discussions. My first decision is, do I somehow carry on working within the state? I am deeply dedicated to a successful outcome for this country, and whatever role I can play, I'd like to play. So, in as much as there is a role for me to play, I would welcome that opportunity. But I think this time, I will need to be insulated a little, and perhaps not be part of the reporting structure or part of the either way. Okay.
You want to get on with the doing?
Well, no, I just think objectivity is a necessary part, and so if independently experts, if you call them that, can come to conclusions for deliberation by politicians and then reach agreement, rather than mix the two every day, so that you're not sure from day to day who's in charge of what mandate, and there are changing authorities and changing mandates and changing urgencies. On paper, the SOEs are solvable. Okay. On paper, Eskom can be solved. It's a financial equation which has got an extraordinarily well-known set of variables. Okay. So let's get that template down, and then say, okay, are we all agreed? That requires this element, that element, and that element, until such time as we deviate from that, could we let the process go? And so we need to reach extraordinary upfront agreement, and then let the thing run. And I think it's possible. And would I love to play a role? Sure, but there's a but, and the but is, and there are lots of me, by the way, it's not about me. There are hundreds of people who have got expertise which they would like to transfer. We are about transferring knowledge and expertise. We are about holding hands in this country. And the sea is so rough. You know, there comes a rough enough sea where you're all going to hold on to each other. Okay, if we don't start holding hands pretty damn quick, we're going to go overboard.
Final question. If you were to be asked to head up Eskom, are you up for the challenge?
One can't speculate about things that haven't happened, you know. Come on, Karina. This is South Africa.
I know, but I'm saying if you asked, would a place like Eskom, with all its complexities, would you put your hand up?
With the right team, with the right support, with the right understanding, of course.
Mr. Barnes, thank you very much, and thanks for your belief in the fact that state-owned enterprises can actually make a contribution to this country. I'm hoping to speak to you soon once you've made up your mind. And thanks again for joining us here on The Fix. Up next, we take a look at the weekend papers and what's made the headlines.